know how this sounds, and I know it's worse coming from me, considering my history. That's why I can't tell the transit cops. I tried. I promise I did. It's important to me that you know that. That you know I wouldn't have let it get this far without trying to help. I'm ahead of myself again. I do that sometimes, more so lately. It's hard to keep it all in my head. That's why I'm writing it here. To get it out. I first saw her 4 months ago. It was a Thursday, late, and I was on the way home from a night out with the girls. Before everything that happened with Macy last year, I used to love the subway. I would stand just on the edge of the yellow line and untie my hair so I could feel it whip in the wind as the train reached the platform. That obviously changed though, so I was seated on a bench against the wall. I still liked the wind, so I was fussing with my scrunchie, trying to untangle the rat nest that my hair had become. I had finally released the bulk of it and was giggling to myself as it flopped down in front of my face. When I saw movement, it was a hand that had reached up to run its fingers over the edge of the platform. I didn't quite believe it at first. I'd like to tell you that I hadn't had a few drinks, as I'm sure it would lend more credibility to my story, but in truth I had. I pulled the rest of the hair from my face and looked closer, expecting to see a rat or something of similar size. The hand came back though, fingers curling up from below and wrapping slowly individually onto the platform. A second hand soon followed. At this point I was on my feet, scrambling towards the yellow line that discouraged people from getting too close to the edge. I wasn't even thinking about Macy. Not really anyway. I'm sure there was a part of my mind personifying the hands as hers, but I was just focused on getting whoever had fallen out before the next train came. The platform was empty save for us two, but I called out for help anyway. Had I been sober, I'd like to think I would have called the emergency line, but hindsight and unimpaired decision making are 20/20. Instead I just crouched down, careful to keep my feet behind the yellow line as I peered into the shadow below the platform and called to the person below. My heart was racing. I was reaching for their hands and prying at their fingers trying to help them up, but they kept their grip clamped tight. To my left I could see the lights of the incoming train starting to round the curve in the distance. I was desperate, yelling that I could help, that they need only take my hand, that I wasn't going to leave them. Despite all this though, I couldn't make myself step over the line. I shouldn't have needed to. I could reach their hand if they would only extend it. I heard a sound through my desperate cries just before the train arrived, a wet sound that I only later identified as her laugh. I was on my knees on the platform station, fingers scraping at hers, unwilling to accept what I was about to witness. Then finally the grip loosened completely, both hands flying up with splayed fingers in a sort of coda that pulled them just out of my reach. When the train rolled through I turned away, curled my face into my knees and tried to plug my ears. Even now when I try to sleep I can still hear Macy, yet this time there was no sound at all save the wind and the rattling tracks and a polite "please stand clear" over the loudspeaker. I let the train pass me, whether it was shock or trauma I'm not sure, but I just sat there for a long moment on my side of the yellow line with my back to the tracks and let the tears fall. Quite some time after the train had passed I finally built the courage to look. I got to my feet and leaned over. No hands. No blood. No Macy. Maybe I'd had more to drink than I thought. Maybe it was finally catching up to me and I hadn't processed my grief as much as I thought I had. Clearly no one had been on the tracks. That's what I told myself at least. Until I saw her again.